Welcome to Trekkie and Beyond, a Star Trek podcast. I'm Moneca.
And I'm Andrea, and welcome to Lower Decks Season 5. And we're doing this in a style of quick dives. So in this episode, we are going over episodes 1 through 3. So that's Dos Cerritos, Shades of Green, and Best Exotic Nanite Hotel.
Okay, so my initial reaction of the first one was like, nah, I'm hoping for more, looking for more, let's build it up. And I'm sure it's going to have a dramatic ending because it always does in Lower Decks. It's just building up. But the start is not as strong for me.
Okay.
And I see conflict, but I see also that the characters haven't grown the way I had hoped that they had. Like, I feel like Boimler is still the same. Like, come on, dude, get confident. Like, don't we've already gone through that. I thought we were further along. And then also, I want more of Orion Pirates. And I only got 2 episodes of that. And I'm like, no, I was hoping for at least 5. Like, so I'm glad I got the 2, but I want a lot more there. I'm glad we had that. The girls' trip, the superhero landing, loved that. Little edgy there with the Orion colorism. Looking forward to talking about that because there's some interesting dynamics there. I'm also getting a little vibe that maybe there's a lot more to this parallel universe than what we previously perceived. I'm wondering if, just if, Talin did switch and if Brad Boimler on the other side gave Boimler that pad, left that pad on purpose. I'm getting some vibes. I'm hoping it's building up to more. So those are my initial reactions. Like, I'm intrigued. There are some fun aspects, but I want a whole lot more. And maybe that's the purpose of a premiere, though. So, what about you?
I liked it. I was happy. It was so I have to say, my biggest thing of all the seasons has been Mariner's like flip floppy of like she's like we finally broken through. And then we did it. And we broke through again. And we did it. And we broke through again. And we did it. And it seems like what the breakthrough was from the last season actually stuck. We are seeing a Mariner who loves Starfleet, who is giving it its all. But it was also interesting to see another version of her and to understand like this is probably the best version that we have. It was awesome to see Tendi sort of be herself, and sort of just not sort of shy away too much from the Orion part of her, because normally in Starfleet we always see her like hiding her Orion side, and now it's flipped. She's trying to bring Starfleet into the piracy, and they're like, please stop. We're pirates. Let us be pirates. I'm with you. I do want to see more Orion piracy. I love her family dynamic. I love her sister. I love their relationship together. Brad, you second guess yourself so much, and I just don't. I don't know what to do with that. I don't. I don't. I don't. This whole episode was basically how Mariner was sort of going through the motions. It's like, oh, so she's getting a little bored. And she's not quite sure also if she's ready to mentor anyone. She doesn't know what she will look like in leadership. And finally, we see that she's okay with being in leadership. And now she's wondering how she's going to be a good leader, which I think is much better than how she used to just sort of like tank all of the leadership roles she ever had. This time, she's not actively trying to sabotage herself. She's like, I don't know how to be a leader. And we get the answer by there being a spatial rift and she's seeing another Cerritos with herself being the captain on the other ship. And I have to say, it was very nice to see all the different Cerritos crew members slightly different. We had a King Billups instead of like, so no, that Billups is not a virgin. He got him some. We see Shax with the long hair. We see Ransom with the long hair. We see her all made up. We see Mariner all made up with her hair in a nice little bun. Peep the bun, peoples. We see them all having a slightly different trajectory. We see Boimler with the full beard. And he's a very confident Boimler, not a cocky Boimler, not like the version of Boimler that came because of the when he ended up making a clone of himself. Not like him, but this one's like, dude, just be chill with it. Like, this Boimler is relaxed. And then we see a cyborg because Rutherford just doesn't know how to be without Tendi, and we see him basically go full cyborg. So this episode gave us a lot with these characters, and I'm really interested. I'm really shocked to say that Mariner was the only level-headed one in my mind. What did you think?
I failed to mention Rutherford in the opening, and at least his character realized that what he called AI Otherford, that he wasn't as good.
Yes.
Like Brad Boimler seemed to like idolize his alternate, who had slightly different point whatever percent difference, but had a different experience. Eric Talin was like, okay, just another person. I
Remarkable.
think
Fascinating.
yes, fascinating. The handsomes, the ransoms that were handsomes. They were cute. And then I agree with you. The Regal Engineering Prince Billups was an interesting dynamic there.
Because that man got him some.
But it also goes to show, I mean, the engineers still had problems like working with each other to get back over to, I don't know, that space-time rift and to get out of the situation that they were in. It's just what a coincidence that they would immediately find each other and all these other things. That's why I'm hoping there's something deeper there. Maybe also because I like more drama, than I'm hoping that that this evolves into more. Another also is because I really like the Terrian, and I feel like this is just too easy. Witness that there was interpersonal dynamics when they had to work with a variation of themselves.
Yes.
And that was surprisingly hard for them to do.
Like, every parent tells every child, oh, I hope you have a kid just like you. And it's like, when you're faced with yourself, it's just like, but like, if you're a know-it-all and you're faced with yourself, who's also a know-it-all, who's right and who's wrong. If you are, and then we see also with the other Cerritos, the non-prime Cerritos, because my Cerritos is the prime Cerritos. We see that whenever the captain is walking by, they immediately stop what they're doing, they drop what they're doing, they stand to attention. So not only are they're faced with themselves, they're faced with the version of themselves that's more strict, that's more uptight or nervous or anxious. And so, of course, they're like, okay, everything, instead of it being almost like an open, honest communication, it's captain, we always have to do everything so we're not thrown into the brig by the captain. And it's like you're working with yourself, but it's a version of yourself that is also under so much more immense pressure. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you're dealing with your child who also has all the stress of their entire family put on their shoulders. And it seems like that's what this one was. Like, no, it's front to back. No, you go left to right. In my mind, you should go front to back, but whatever. So it was very interesting to see the way that they spoke to each other, the way they acted with each other, and also how much more Beckett was. She turned into the thing that she hated, and she couldn't stop herself because she was so. We see the version of Beckett on our Cerritos who, like, threw away power, who thumbed her nose at the people above her, who never wanted to follow the rules, who the rules were made to be broken. She had to do everything her own way. And then we see this Beckett who was like, I just decided to embrace being captain. And we see what happens. She became the captain she hated so much so that she tried to kidnap her own self so she could switch places because she didn't know how to revert back to herself on her own ship. She had created such this anxious world that she controlled that she could have said, no, this is over. We're done with. We're not doing this anymore. And instead, she was like, you know what? I can't get out of this. I'm going to go and switch spots with my twin and go be relaxed because that is the version of herself that she created. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it's almost another self-sabotage. Like, because she ended up in the brig again. Like, really, did you not think that, like, they would find out? At some point in time, you're not, you did this unthinkable thing as a captain, and even if you were trapped then in the prime universe, there will be ramifications for these actions. And like our Mariner, who's has served time in the brig now. She's there, and so I wonder how that unfolds. I do want to mention that as a captain, there was Captain Freeman, who was obsessed about finding out about her alternate.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone was like obsessed with this part, except for like a few people like Talin. And then I don't know. I'm still stuck on this Brad part because the season opened up with him looking at a periodical and he was disappointed with the fact that he wasn't in the 30 under 30. So even before they crossed over, he was doing this self-reflection, like his career isn't the way it needs, where it should be, but he's moved up and he's on the bridge. The captain knows him by his first name. So wow, he just has these high standards for himself, and gets in his own way.
He does. Very much so. And then on the other half of this episode, we're hanging with our girl, Tendi. We get to see her be a pirate. We're seeing her loot. We're seeing her still. We're seeing her also infusing her Starfleetness into being a pirate. There's no rules in pirating, but it's also very interesting that for Orions, they all stressed using Orion only technology, which I didn't realize that was a thing. Even with how they tried to like steal the ship back, and so Tendi could pay off her debt. And she made laughing gas, but she used only Orion technology. But it wasn't a pirate move to use laughing gas. We see that she saved someone who got stabbed. She's not being so much of a pirate, and those actions are getting her family in trouble because she's trying to bring Starfleet rules to a situation that does not require Starfleet rules. And I just found that very interesting. At the end of this episode, she's free, and instead she's like, nah, I'm going to stay and help you guys out of the pickle that I put you guys in, because she was trying to save everyone's life. And sometimes you got to follow the rules of the situation you're in, not the rules of a government you're no longer a part of.
Yeah, you can take Tendi out of Starfleet, but you can't take the Starfleet out of Tendi. It's just how she is, and thank goodness, as we learn about this, that she was able to leave to really explore this identity. I felt as though it wasn't about her using other technology. It was just like a code of ethics that like if you're a true pirate, it's all about us and getting the loot. It's you shouldn't save your arch nemesis or the other pirate. And so that's the way I was getting. That's the vibe, because I would think that pirates would use any type of technology to get whatever they want, but maybe they just have these other standards there for us. I really like seeing the other dynamics with the other ladies as part of the crew. I'm puzzled by the blue, and they're not called Orions, the Orions. They pronounce their names differently.
The blue, but and they don't say Orions. But the Orions called them Blue Orions, which is interesting.
Yeah, blue eons.
Yeah.
Yeah, the House of Azure. When he said that, that helped to differentiate between like the House of Tendi and Azure.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, but they're all Orions. But then why is their skin color not green? It's just that there's now I know there's other skin tones, and there's a differentiator because also not dominated by women. there's
Yeah.
there's guys that lead this, but um I don't know. This is why I need more backstory. And I feel like also this was deeper dives and Easter eggs from other shows that either I don't remember or I never watched. So it's not connecting and resonating as much as me. But I feel as though there's definitely some Orion classism or colorism differences there for their state in society.
It's all very fun and antics that I love about Lower Decks because we're seeing such a different side of the Star Trek universe with these shows, and I loved it. I liked it. So, before we go and take a quick break and go into episode 2, any final thoughts about episode 1?
I really like seeing how they expressed Rutherford's his interest in Tendi and how he missed her in that dynamic there. I mean, it was just touched on very briefly in episode 1, but they mentioned it. It's not like, oh, our friend is gone and we're not going to talk about it. Like, I felt like that was the case sometime in Discovery. Like, there was a crew member that wasn't there. And we're like, oh, we're not going to talk about it.
If someone is missing, they'll still talk about the person. They're not just gone out of the universe. They don't exist. We don't hear anything about them until they're back, and then they're all in that episode. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Jet, talking to you. Where have you been? Where have you been? What are we talking about? Because now we're diving into shades of green. And that has like a double meaning because greed, money, our money is green. And then we were talking about different Orions who are all shades of green. So let's get into it. This episode is all about Tendi trying to save her family's honor for not killing a dude, which is very interesting, and not killing people and stealing a ship. And we see another world is joining the Federation, and greed has gone out the window, and people can just not have capitalism, which still in my mind does not understand how the world works without money. But neither here nor there. Let's get into it. Your initial reactions. What did you think?
I have mixed reviews about this one. So
Okay.
I really like all things Tendi in this episode. The capitalism part I could skip, and it actually wasn't as memorable for me. It didn't resonate with me. How about that? And so I wish that B story was developed more. I understand the shades of green, but it just wasn't there. That other story with Boimler and Mariner. Hmm. What about you?
I will admit the A story of Tendi was the whole point of this episode. It was amazing. It was great. Loved it. Though Tendi, still you're Tendying sometimes, and you need to just stop and actually talk to people instead of going behind their backs. But we'll get to that into the deep where we can do our little deep dive into this episode. But I feel like for this episode, it was more for Boimler coming into leadership a bit more. Of how he was saying all these lessons 1, lessons 2, lessons 3 for his like cadets, and we could see that they didn't really care until sort of like the end of the episode, where they're like, "Oh, we remembered everything you said," and it's sort of just like, I think this was more of a lesson for him because I will admit also the capitalism part was just like, okay, they're capitalist terrorists, okay, Interesting. Let's just dive into it. But it wasn't until like the very end I was like, oh, okay, I get why I had to suffer through the rest of this episode. Okay.
With you.
So, diving in, this episode is all about Tendi going to war with the Blue Orions. And I'm calling them the Orions because I cannot pronounce it the way that they say it. I tried. My mouth does not make those sounds. And going into war with the Blue Orions because their queen I'm sorry, because they stole the ship in a way that's not really Orion's way, which is whatever. We see that we can see the relationship with her and her sister and how they got to be sisters and how they get to just have little fun girls nights like, Mom, we're not ready to go to sleep. And it's like, you're the leader of your family and your mom's like, girls, go to bed. Like, honey, you're full adult. Like, that was adorable in my mind. We get to see like almost a glimpse into their childhood. It was nice to see that sort of style of her life because Tendi always sort of tried to distance herself from her family and her name and all the other episodes and all the other seasons, that it was nice to see her embrace it and embrace her culture and her family. So I really did like that. But also we see the bad part of Tendi where she thinks her sister is hiding something from her, which she is, but it's also she's allowed to have secrets. And her sister's pregnant. And instead of being like, my sister's a badass and she can take care of herself, Tendi's like, I have to protect you. Like, Tendi, you can't do both. Your sister can't be this fearsome, fierce leader who is like in charge of your family syndicate to not knowing, like she can't take care of it. She knows she's pregnant. But this society is run by women. That does not stop her. Like, chill. We get to see a different type of Orions. They're sailing. We get to see Tendi sort of get put in her place by her own family, which I sort of like because Tendi again has these like, I'm almost better than them somewhat mentality sometimes. And it's nice for her family to be like, look, chill. We got this. We're cool. We're tired of being we're trying to deflect. We're tired of deflecting assassination attempts anyway. So it was nice. What did you think about Tendi's story in this episode?
I question a few things in it. I like the overall dynamic, the fact that they're telling us more about culture of the Orions in a short period of time, right? The fact that you can be a badass and still manage family dynamics and travel the galaxy and compete in like sailing competitions and everything and not have a stigma that, oh, you need to be more conservative of because you're pregnant, but this is what they've been doing for generations. And so it's I love the fact that we're seeing this other cultural dynamic that like Tendi is not used to anymore, I guess, and brought her baggage into this fold, even though I think probably her mother was like this way, her grandmother, so forth like that, the queen. So it's interesting to see that. I was really surprised that her sister did not, sister meaning the Erica, did not come down on Tendi for reading base or listening to her diary, her personal log, like journal, because we initially saw them in this episode as like kid figures, right? Talking about and like playing with each other and like teasing each other and so forth like that. So if you think back to your child, you're very in adulthood, you're protected of your
Privacy.
Yeah. And so just like hacking into her computer and listening to and then holding this information back, not just coming out and like, let's talk about this, we're sisters. Like, so I'm surprised there wasn't more of a like a gross, like, come on, you didn't, why'd you do that? Why didn't you just ask me about this? A little bit of a rift because that's a violation, I think, in sister code, just family dynamics to do that.
Her sister knew Tendi's heart wasn't in a bad place when she did it. I feel like she knew, like, because I still think she was still upset. She's like, those were private. You weren't supposed to read that. And I feel like But she also understood Tendi's motive was never anything bad. That doesn't make it right. I'm not saying it makes it right, but she knows her sister was not doing this to harm her. She was trying to understand. And Tendi, for some reason, is weird like that. And so, because I know if my brothers read my diary, why? What was the reason that you did this? There was no reason you could not have spoken to me. And I feel like Tendi still doesn't really know how to talk to her sister because she's still trying to bring Starfleet into it. And then we see that her sister kept something from her because she didn't want to hold her sister back. So it's also like, hey, I didn't tell you I was pregnant because if I told you I was pregnant, you might feel obligated to stay. And she knows she doesn't want to. And so it's like all these little pieces by itself, it was wrong. But like understanding the whole picture and understanding that her sister understands why she did it and knows that it was never intended to get information to like backstab her. It was never intended for her to like get some information so that way she can undercut her sister and take over for herself. It was never any of that. So because of that, I think that's why she got let off easier. Now, because Tendi is still Tendi, her family lost everything because of her. And I honestly did not see that coming. I did, but I didn't. Because we see that when she is racing the Blue Orions, she hinders her ship because she refuses to let her sister take control. Why? Why would you do this, Tendi? And at the end of the day, she destroys the treasure instead of letting either one of them have it. So it's a tie. It's like, oh, she'll be happy that we worked out our differences. This is not Starfleet, Tendi. This is Orion. And the queen lets her know that. She's like, you should have just, it doesn't matter if it's not fair. When have we ever been fair? People are literally trying to kill you all the time to take what you have. You're a syndicate, a crime family. What are we talking about? But I did like at the end of the episode that Tendi was able to get her family some riches back to help sort of make up for the fact that she lost everything for her family and now she's giving them something back. And we see that the Blue Orions, because for whatever reason, are now working for her sister. So it was this story was it was very interesting to see this part of her. What did you think about the rest of that?
Oh, I think the ending completely saved this episode, the B story and the dynamics with Tendi and the house the house of Tendi. Mm-hmm. Because you would be heartbroken to know that like your family was wealthy before you got involved and now there's nothing. Like you gambled and lost it all away because you wanted a tie. Like we couldn't even win the race. So that was hard. And then the whole like going into your sister's diary, and then the whole mutiny part. There could have been a lot of
no. It was a cutiny.
It was at the time in which her sister was fighting to get back control. That wasn't cute. And so this I'm glad that Devana Tendi was in the right place at the right time and knew the right people, meaning really Captain Freeman, to help leverage and get the money that the planet no longer needed. Because if it wasn't for that, it would have been a much tougher family reunion later.
And it's also really interesting how positive spin her family put on it. It was like, oh yeah, Dad's working with the pillaging crew. He got a job. Like, oh, it'd be nice to not have to fend off assassination attempts. I was like, but y'all were like millionaires and you have nothing. But now you're billionaires because you have the entire planet's wealth. But still, it's just like, y'all didn't know that was gonna happen. Y'all just must really love this girl, or y'all just really want her to go away.
Yeah, that was overly cute. That was too effective. Like I felt like there should have been at least one person in the family that would have been angry.
And then on the B side of this episode, we see that Mariner is not sabotaging herself. I really enjoyed that in this episode. Nothing in this episode was her fault, really. Yay, Mariner! And we see that the cadets actually end up getting in some trouble. And we see that the people are not happy on the planet that they're losing their wealth and status and power. And let's be honest, in real life, that was the most realistic thing I've ever seen in Star Trek, is someone losing their crap because they lost money, has become irrelevant. And the people who used the money, who gave them all the power, going crazy, kidnapping people, I believe it. I totally believe it. But to see, I actually got scared for a moment. They did scare me a little bit when I saw the cadets were like dead. I was like, oh my gosh. Did this got dark real quick? It's like, no. It was just a bug. We got it to bite ourselves so we could, they think we were dead and they let us go. Because we listened to you, Boimler. So I found like that, the B story wasn't great, but I think it gave Boimler a little bit of confidence that he needed to keep going and his like leadership role. So I will say that I found it interesting that it's Boimler's cadets they were watching and not hers. Because at the end of the last episode, we see her cadets come onto the ship. So I did find that was interesting. What about you?
But didn't Mariner really cause some of this conflict by telling Boimler that he should change his management style so it's much more relaxed? Like, and then that sparked the whole, oh, let's give them this time off. Like,
But she could not have known they were going to get kidnapped by terrorists on the ship.
no,
That's not her fault.
But these are his cadets and like his mission. So let Bloimer lead. Let him do his thing.
She did not tell them to like. I felt so. I have to disagree. Our first disagreement of the season. Because it wasn't like she told the cadets to like blow off and then like it's not like she undercut it Boimler and then they got kidnapped. This was Boimler, I think you might need to relax a bit. You know what? You're right. Guys, you can take a break. And then they came back to meet them at the right time. And then they got kidnapped. So that wasn't really their fault. That wasn't really, I'm not, I can't, that's not, I'm not putting that one on Mariner. Nope. Not putting that one on Mariner. Not at all.
Mind your own cadets and your own management style. That's my final word on this episode.
And my final word is not Becca's fault. So we're going to take another quick break. And then when we come back, we're going to finish our quick deep dive into episodes 1, 2, and 3 with episode 3. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. In this episode, we are talking about the best exotic nanite hotel. This episode was interesting. And I'm going to save my thoughts for after Moneca. Initial thoughts. What did you think?
It was still a minute for me. I liked the whole like overworked, stressed out admiral that needs a break and went AWOL. But I felt like the chase for the Nanite, like we had seen that storyline time and time again. So so it wasn't intriguing for me, but it was okay. It was how about this? It was a guy's trip.
I will admit, I got joy out of Beckett learning a lesson that was not a lesson that like reverted back, but like it was sometimes you have to confront things instead of just letting things die. I liked that conversation. I like how her relationship ended officially. It was weird, people. It was weird. But okay, so sorry. I think this is the episode that starts off the like how Lower Decks does like a mini season arc type thing. This is the episode I think that starts it off because of the end. Because of like who we meet at the end of this episode is the reason why I think this episode is like the start of like a mini season arc universe. This is the second time we've seen a temporal rift of someone from a different universe being in an episode in the same season. we're getting something. Something is happening. So our deep dive, this episode was about some nanites showing up on a resort type planet hotel area and started eating everything metal. And it was like just kidnapping people inside this whole little thing of nanites. And so Starfleet was going down tasks to being able to stop it. And then there's also a separate story, B story, or maybe the A story. I don't really know. They are both sub. Of Brad Boimler going down with Ransom and Billups to find the admiral who went AWOL because he was so stressed out. And because Lower Decks is Lower Decks, before Brad is so psyched to go on, he runs into Jet, and Jet's like, I lost my hands, man. I lost my hands. Because Ransom just uses us as like a canary in a coal mine. And of course, Brad then starts overthinking things and basically almost ruins the mission when really they were trying to give him a chance to show that he was brave and he was a leader. So, Moneca, thoughts on this episode? Your moments.
Okay, let's start with Brad Boimler. And so I like that they show the fact that not all Starfleet officers are like content in their jobs, because it seems like he's going through this career mission, like he's going through something right now. And so there's this admiral that they're looking for who's like, and so they go undercover in this undercover persona, but he constantly makes mistakes. Culturally etiquette. He forgets that he's undercover and like shares his identity and stuff like that.
My bones aren't as strong because I'm in Starfleet being in space all day.
So he let, as you stated, like Jet's experiences get to his head. And so then he was not thinking of it in a fresh start, because Ransom had and Bilford had a completely different like plan for this mission. And this was an opportunity for, as Brad said, to get on that 30 out of 30 under 30 list. But I want to mention the Admiral, who he seemed to be going through this midlife crisis in his career, and he felt like he wasn't respected because he was searching for space whales, which the storyline I really like. That's the mission I would love to see. But he wanted more dangerous missions, and he was burnt out, and like had decided to go on this long-term vacation. And they were on a quest to get him out of there. And in the end, Brad stepped up and used his
wiriness.
I was gonna say sunblock to like to squeeze out and help and help his brother guys, get out of that situation as well. He just doesn't give himself enough credit. And once again, back to my introduction to this series, my overall reaction is like he just keeps putting himself in a situation, and I feel like what you said back in Discovery, like Michael kept doing this, like I want to see him strong. I wanted to see Michael strong. Like, just knock yourself out of this. You can do this. Otherwise, you're going to get burnt out just like this admiral, and you're going to try to escape. So it'll be okay. You just need a pep talk, but you've got this.
It's this episode was, hopefully this was the kick in the pants Boimler needs, to hear Ransom and them say like, look, dude, we think you're amazing, which is why we wanted you on this trip. And then to find out later at the end of the episode that he thinks Jet loves these dangerous missions. And he's not using him as a canary in the coal mine. He just thinks Jet likes it. He's like, I just got these hands. No, I don't want to go to lava. It's lava. I don't want to do this. And I just found that hilarious because, like, Jet thinks Ransom is using him as cannon fodder. And Ransom thinks, oh, I'm giving this guy exactly what he wants. He wants these dangerous missions. Let's give him these dangerous missions. So I just thought that was a cute little way of saving Ransom's image to us. Like, no, he thinks he's actually helping these people. And if Jet would just say, hey, I don't like dangerous missions, maybe Ransom wouldn't put him in dangerous missions. And the other half of it, the main point I feel for like Beckett's part of the conversation of this episode is her relationship with Stephanie. Jennifer.
Because it's janitor. The two of their names together.
No. We see that she is acting like Beckett's girlfriend again. And if you guys remember, she like ended it with her when Beckett was falsely accused back in like season 3, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And so it was a whole season where they weren't together. And I remember them not being together. So even I was shocked by it. She's like, wait for your girlfriend. And instead of Beckett just like, hey, what do you mean? She tries to take the easy way out each time Jennifer almost gives her like an easy way out. And Jennifer's like, nope, I'm going to force you to break up with me. But in my defense, in Beckett's defense, sorry, not my defense, in Beckett's defense, why does she have to be the one to break up with you? You literally broke up with her. You turned your back on her when she needed you. You literally admitted you never thought she was innocent. Like, so why does she have to be the one to be the man? Like, you know what? That didn't really make sense. I understand that Beckett needs to have hard conversations instead of avoiding them. But don't act like you're not equally as bad in this situation. She was your girlfriend. She was accused of something and you immediately assumed she was wrong. And then you're mad at her for not coming back to you and breaking up with you officially. Maybe she didn't owe you crap. But yes, Beckett, I retract my earlier statement. Beckett didn't do anything wrong. She didn't owe you nothing, Jennifer. I rest my case.
I guess in this timeline, they don't have ghosting. Like, it's just like, like, oh, we haven't spoken in a year. We're over. Like, it's not a thing. So that's one. And then two, I'm wondering if the writers are like giving us like a wink wink to all the other captains and Starfleet officers that are in this whole kiss him and leave him kind of thing. And like, this is not the case. Like, now these characters need to grow up and give closure and shit. I don't know. I don't think this really needed to be there. It shows that I guess she's growing up because she's overcoming one of her self-described her issues, right? Mm-hmm. She knows that she avoids conflict, and here she had to. She had to have the conversation because even though the two of them were there, she was still trying to avoid the conversation. So that's the only thing I can think about it. In the end, though, T'Lyn was able to save the day. I like that aspect.
We also get to see T'Lyn fangirl slightly, which was very interesting. I like that. I like that side of her. Even though it was a very small fangirl, she's like, I'm having trouble focusing with his instrument right there. Like, okay, T'Lyn, we see you. You love this. Okay.
And what is this thing that you give me? It's a picture of him. Doesn't really have any value. But Tendi was like, okay, no. I want to keep it though. Like, which is not really logic. It doesn't. It's sentimental, right? So therefore, it's not logical.
Yes. And at the last part, we see that the nanites were dropped in by a different Starfleet ship that is from a different universe that's smaller than this universe. And so they use the nanites to try and create, gather enough power and resources to create another rift to get them home. Which is why I feel like this is leading up to like a little mini season story, season mystery, because we have seen two different universes. And apparently this one isn't the same one as the one we saw in episode 1. So I wonder what we're going to get in the future episodes that are coming. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen as we move forward. So I think this is turning into like a little bit of a season mystery. And I like how Lower Decks does their season mystery because there's so much that goes on in each episode and they give you little hints into the last 2 episodes where everything sort of like makes sense and comes together. So I'm excited. Any final thoughts about episode 3?
I do want to mention, because I mentioned it earlier in my initial reaction, that this nanite storyline we had seen before. So whether it's the trebles, the furry things in the original series on Discovery, there was the control. So there's always this like invasive species that we're trying to get rid of, but no one knows exactly how to do it, and it grows. I wasn't expecting it in this case to grow into like a Dungeon and Dragon dice. Like, and then for creatures to be able to live in it or
Yeah.
survive in it, that was a whole other mind bending thing. But this is where Lower Decks thrives, because in animation you can tell these stories and develop these scenes that would be much harder for the viewing audience to convince that like could be real if it was like live action. So then I'm like, okay, maybe this is more fantasy than science fiction, but I'll run with it. And it's because it's in animation. So I do want to mention that, and as a positive way of ending this season, this episode.
I mean, I do like the ending. I like that both our characters have learned stuff and are growing. Positive, yay. I'm excited. I am still excited for the season. Lower Decks is probably my favorite version of Star Trek right now, just because it's so much fun. Whenever I go back and rewatch, I just enjoy it. I laugh again. Even if I hear the same jokes over and over and over again, I love it. And this episode wasn't the best. It was an episode. They completed it at the beginning, a middle, and end. Love it. But I think it was used mostly to set up the rest of the season, and that's what I hope sort of happens, is that we get a setup for the rest of the season from this episode. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Mariner take on more responsibility. I'm looking forward to seeing Tendi interact with her family. I hope this is not the last time we see her family in this season. I want to see more of her sister. I want to see her go back for an Orion baby shower. Like, do they do that? I want to see that. I want to see more of that culture. I want to see Rutherford come into his own. I want to see Taylin. Oh, I forgot to mention of how like she destroyed the shuttle ship in episode 2, so that way they could all build it together. And I like how she's sort of blending seamlessly into the group as well. Because I was a little worried about how she was going to fit in with the crew, and she's making her own way and understanding how to be a part of it, and they're like accepting her. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen in this episode. Sorry, in this season. So I am excited. I can't wait to see it. But as always, I'm Andrea.
And I'm Moneca.
And live
Live
long.
long and